This is my third big crypto winter. What I'm noticing is that it's the same every time. A good portion of the people always think they're attending the funeral of their favorite project. This time with Cardano, it's the same. And I'm not hearing anything that I didn't hear about Bitcoin and Ethereum in the last two cycles. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to look at some of the social media circulating out there that's promoting Cardano, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, seedless self-custodied wallets in Cardano, a scientific expedition funded by Charles, and an interesting note from the founder of Emergo. If you could tell that this is a snow globe trapped inside another snow globe, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. One of the most interesting things about crypto has been how fractal and iterative it really is. So I've been in crypto almost a decade now. Is it a decade? Almost a decade? I forget, but something around a decade. And I've seen three big cycles of bull markets and bear markets, of crypto rallies and crypto winters. And what I've noticed is that in every single crypto winter, no matter what community you're in my first crypto winter, it was pretty much just Bitcoin. And then the next one, it was sort of like Gen 2 of crypto, and everything was about Ethereum. And now here we are in the third crypto winter, at least for me, and it's Gen 3. And for me, and probably a lot of you, that's Cardano. But what's interesting is it's easy to lose sight of how much people say exactly the same things in every crypto winter. So back in my first crypto winter, Bitcoin had just gone through the crazy parabolic highs. The first time Bitcoin really got a huge amount of attention. And I think at that point, the Wired article had come out, and everybody who was in Bitcoin felt like they had discovered something that was going to take over the world. This is a story that people who've entered crypto in any year could probably share. And they could also share the next part. We suffered the Mt. Gox crash, and a lot of the talk was around Bitcoin will never recover. We'll never see those levels of adoption again. Things will never be good again. Everything's ruined. The world is upside down. It was all the super apocalyptic talk you'd expect. And it was very similar to the stuff I heard after the next big parabolic high and crash, after the ICO craziness and everything in Ethereum went crazy. And then we had that big crash. Same thing. We'll never be able to have ICOs again, at least not at the same level we had them. So we'll never see another big bull market, another big rally. We'll never have that big influx of adoption again, because we know that the regulators won't let us have another ICO season. And then sure enough, we had another big boom, another gigantic rally, and the markets went crazier than they've ever gone before, at least in absolute terms. The levels we reached in absolute terms were ridiculously high compared to anything I thought we'd ever achieve when I first got into crypto back in that 2013 period, whenever it was. But we're now seeing the same exact things. We're hearing people say exactly the same things. This time, for me, and probably for a lot of you, it's about Cardano. The weird part is I'm not hearing anybody say anything about Cardano that I didn't hear people say about Ethereum and Bitcoin in the previous two crypto winners. And it's easy to lose sight of that, because now Cardano, instead of being, all of crypto, kind of like Bitcoin was when I first got in. There were other projects out there, but it was really all about Bitcoin. And then with Ethereum, it was sort of like just Ethereum that had smart contracts. It was a big focus, at least, of the smart contract activity that was happening in crypto. So it seemed like they were all of crypto. Now with Cardano, it's a little bit different. Cardano is was an early Gen 3 blockchain ecosystem, but it's not the only one. So I think it's a little bit easier for people to lose sight of the fact that what we're experiencing is just this like little microcosm of exactly the same things that have happened in previous cycles with Bitcoin and with Ethereum. So none of this really seems surprising to me. We're seeing all kinds of social media posts, and we have pretty much always in Cardano, but I think a lot of people would agree the level that this is happening, the level at which this is happening right now in Cardano is, probably pretty amplified just because we're so deep in the crypto winter. And now it's even a little bit of a thaw. We've seen a little bit of, sort of market activity that makes it feel like there's a little bit of a thaw in the crypto winter. But even so, we're still seeing a lot of posts just like this one. So people are saying things like, why are all the projects leaving Cardano? And then we're seeing big posts in subreddits like the cryptocurrency subreddit, which traditionally has not been kind to Cardano. Seeing posts like this, projects taking liquidity from Cardano and going elsewhere, building elsewhere. And of course, they're painting this in as negative a light as possible. But none of this should be really surprising to anybody because we saw exactly the same thing with even Bitcoin in that earlier crypto winter after the Mt. Gox crash. And at that time, it wasn't even projects moving from one blockchain ecosystem to another because they thought they saw greener pastures. It was like whole rumors of mainstream adoption dying. It was like all of a sudden this website is accepting Bitcoin. This chain of brick and mortar, whatever is accepting Bitcoin. And those things were drying up because it was crypto winter. And people thought, when like a large website platform stopped allowing customers to pay in Bitcoin, people, were like, we'll never get back there. We've tried, we've had our moment in the sun, and now it's all failed. We'll never get back there. And at the time, if you believed wholeheartedly in that narrative, you might have exited Bitcoin entirely, not having any idea that the next bull cycle was going to be much bigger than the one you just went through. And the one after that would be much bigger than that one. But this has been the story of crypto. Cardano is going through its own little version of this right now. But all of these posts are not surprising to me at all. I mean, we saw big, big sort of mainstream adoption that looked like it was going to take place in that first big bull cycle. And then after the Mt. Gox crash, it all dried up. I mean, it felt tremendously more severe then because we had one gigantic exchange and it went completely belly up. Things were pretty severe. I mean, there was good reason to believe that maybe crypto would never recover. And of course, crypto recovered. And then after the ICO craze, we had the big fall and crypto recovered. And now here we are, yet another turn in the cycle. But for a lot of people who are experiencing this for the first time, they probably don't know that this has happened many, many times. This is like the little snow globe sitting in the snow in the alpine forest. And then as you zoom out, you realize that's not really an alpine forest. That's a snow globe inside of another snow globe. And that snow globe is inside of another snow globe. We're just experiencing these iterative cycles of human behavior. And now at this point in crypto, I think this has been documented quite a bit. There are all kinds of, and we've even discussed them and shown them on this channel, all kinds of charts, sort of attempting to map out the human psychology that results in these boom and bust cycles. And they're not things we see just in crypto. They're certainly things we see in all types of markets, all types of economic analysis, all types of macro affairs. It's just human psychology. We're experiencing this is another snow globe inside another snow globe we're in right now. And what always happens is that you emerge into a new crypto cycle where all of a sudden we're rallying and there's this huge influx of adoption. And this will happen once again for Cardano, and everyone will forget all about all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they were embracing, just a year ago. And all of a sudden, all the talk will be about moon Lambos and buying houses and all of those kinds of things. I'm not saying those things will actually happen for you or for me or for anybody, but I'm saying those are the kinds of things people will be talking about because those are the things, these same people with all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt posts, they're the same people who are talking about nothing but moon Lambos during the bull cycle. It's just we have this little bit of human behavior. The same people who are gonna embrace the momentum behind the fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now will be the ones embracing the momentum behind the road to moon Lambos when we're back in the big adoption part of the cycle. This post is another great example of some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's circulating out there. This post says, unpopular opinion, the only reason Cardano hates VCs is because we have none. And then, of course, they follow that up with the very reasonable, I can honestly say I like the feedback from this tweet. It's always nice to hear everyone else's perspective on the idea. Whenever I see this pattern, the announcement, unpopular opinion, and then they say something that's at least semi-controversial, and then they follow that up with like a very reasonable follow-up post, I automatically assume that it's basically just going to be some effective engagement farming. Not saying that this poster doesn't actually hold this opinion. I'm just saying it's also coincidentally very good engagement farming when you follow this format. We see it a lot in crypto. But if we think about this sentiment, it's kind of interesting, because it's true. We have always heralded the lack of VCs in Cardano as one of Cardano's great strengths. But when you think about how that's worked out, it's actually worked out great for Cardano, because we saw early on, and we even detailed it on this channel, how blockchains like Solana that had kind of an incredible amount of ownership of their base layer token in the insiders and VCs and other early investors, it was easy to tell, even at the top of the market when Solana was doing great, it was easy to tell that that was probably going to be bad news for the comparatively very small group of public owners, not in terms of the number of the public owners, but in terms of the amount of the token they held. It was very centralized in the insiders and their early investors. It was obvious that was going to be a big problem. And sure enough, even the things we talked about multiple times on this channel in regards to Solana's insider and investor ownership, pretty much all those things have played out. Like, Solana is pretty much in the position that was easily predictable from their token distribution. Like, it was pretty easily predictable that exactly this would play out. And sure enough, I don't think any of us in Cardano would necessarily want to trade places with Solana right now. I think we're all pretty happy to be in Cardano spot and not Solana spot. And of course, you could say, well, that's just VC ownership of the base layer token. There's also VC ownership of or VC funding of projects, which is the same as VC owning partial VC ownership of projects. But what we find is that with these blockchain ecosystems, the VC participation in projects and VC participation in the base layer token, they tend to coincide. And of the Gen 3 projects that have also seen, that have seen a lot of VC adoption, those aren't the projects that are in between Cardano and the number one spot. Those projects, the Gen 3 blockchain projects that have had a lot of VC adoption, those are all below Cardano in the charts. When I think of what's consistently in between Cardano and the number one spot, what have we got? We've got Bitcoin, we've got Ethereum, which, there's VC money in Ethereum, but it's a Gen 2 project. It's become a Gen 3 project as they've gone to proof of stake. And then we've got Binance, which is kind of in its own little universe. And then we've got some stable coins, and that's pretty much it. Those are the projects in between Cardano and number one. We don't see Gen 3 projects that have been able to consistently beat Cardano. We're the leader of the pack among the projects that launched as Gen 3 projects. We're the leader, and coincidentally, we're the ones that rejected VCs. Speaking of projects, here's a project that is active in Cardano. NewFi, who you probably know is associated with Vacuum Labs, they have something new for us. They're saying even grandma can get into crypto. Just sign in with Google or another social account to create a seedless self-custody wallet for Web3 apps, NFTs, staking, and more. So you can see they're doing something we probably need to do a lot more of in crypto, and that's focus on mainstream adoption. This situation where we're asking people to write down, a couple dozen words as a seed phrase and then keep those safe, and that is the only way their funds are going to be safe. That's probably not good enough for adoption by regular mainstream people who may not be as tech oriented as a lot of crypto early adopters. You can barely get people to find a way to not lose their passwords, which is, generally not like a couple dozen words of characters, generally much, much shorter. They can barely keep those. So this is probably a much better way to go during the next adoption cycle to onboard mainstream users. How does this work though? So they say how it works: when a wallet is created using a social account, a private key is generated and split into shards. These are stored securely by Torus network nodes and transmitted to your device before being reconstructed into a private key. 2FA checkmark. So obviously this is not the kind of thing where I would keep any amount of crypto I cared about. Any amount of crypto I care about, I'm gonna keep that on a hardware wallet. I'm gonna throw that on my ledger. If you don't have a ledger and you have an amount of crypto you care about, I strongly suggest you get one or some other comparable hardware wallet. If you want a ledger, there's an affiliate link in the box below. That means I make a small commission. Feel free to use that if you would like to get a ledger, which I think you should if you have any amount of crypto you care about. But having said that little piece, I think this will be great for, say, one of my friends during the next big crypto cycle. When they come to me and say, hey, I've heard you mention ADA before. What's the best way for me to get a hold of some ADA? Usually at that point, I tell them about, keeping their seed phrase safe and how they have to write down these magic words. And that's usually about where I lose their attention because they don't want to keep anything safe. They don't want to have anything on any piece of paper or otherwise. So they just never actually do it. But this might be a better solution for people like that if they're just going to buy, like $10 of crypto, some amount they aren't really going to cry about if they lose it. This might be a good solution for the mainstream. You probably remember Professor Avi Loeb of Harvard as the Oumuamua guy. Oumuamua was that thing flying through space at a high speed that might have just been a rock, or it might have been some kind of alien technology going on some kind of an interstellar journey. So Professor Loeb seemed like he was definitely kind of leaning towards the alien technology thing. So now he's looking at this runaway fireball that crashed off the coast of Papua New Guinea, and he thinks the wreckage, or at least broken pieces of that, whether it's some kind of alien probe or just some kind of meteor, he thinks that's at the bottom of the ocean, and he thinks he's devised a plan to go and retrieve those pieces of rock or pieces of wreckage, whatever they might be. And it looks like Charles has funded this expedition and will be going along, according to this post. Finally, here's some very promising news from Ken Kodama, CEO of Emergo and co-founder of Cardano. He says that a major political party in Japan has written a Web3 white paper, and it looks like they wish to seriously establish Japan as a leader in the Web3 space through favorable regulation and tax incentives. How does that sound? We have neither of those in North America, really. So this apparently this white paper talks about standardizing crypto accounting, a clear registration process for stablecoin issuance, appointing a Web3 minister, issuing crypto visas for skilled workers to come to Japan. They talk about passing clear regulations to encourage big business to invest in Web3, and even only taxing investors on their crypto when their crypto is traded for fiat. So this is pretty promising. If this particular party in Japan were able to pull this off, all of their proposals in their white paper, they might be able to establish Japan as a huge crypto hub. Definitely Japan would have huge regulatory advantages over North American jurisdictions and possibly even over European jurisdictions. So fingers crossed, hopefully something like this actually happens in Japan. That'd be great, since Japan was the birthplace of Cardano. I hope you had a great weekend and you're getting ready for a nice week. I'll talk to you tomorrow.